Okay, one-step equation. So we are very quickly wrapping up a lot of the pre-algebra skills. So one-step equations, just remember when you're solving an equation, you want to get the variable by itself, and to get rid of anything on one side, you've got to do the opposite. Okay, so in this case, in problem number 1, the opposite of multiply by 7 is divide by 7. So whatever you do to one side, again, you got to do to the other, and we get n is -4. Okay, now the importance of all the things that we've done up to this point are being able to multiply, add, subtract, divide, integers, decimals, fractions, all that stuff, because when you have to solve equations, you don't always have a calculator, so you got to be able to do that by hand. So here's a great instance where you got to know the integers. Okay, the next problem, even though the variable's on the other side, doesn't matter. We're multiplying by -15, so we divide by -15. Divide by -15. Negative divided by negative. So now we got to remember our integer rules is a positive. 75 divided by 15 is 5, so 5 equals n. Okay. Next we have -18 and 8. So on this side we're dividing by 8. So the opposite of divide is multiply. So I have to multiply both sides by 8. Those cancel. So now I got to do 8 times 18. So 8 times 10 is 80. 8 times 8 is 64. 80 and 64 is 144. So that's a -144 is P. Okay, one more. Here, again, divide by 13. So we get n is -156 divided by 13. Be a -1, 12, -12. Okay, so one thing we didn't do there, we didn't have any adding or subtracting, but again, same rules apply, just do the opposite. Alright, so next problem. Oh man, so we got this big decimal number. So again, we got through practicing doing decimals, so it's going to be very applicable here. So what we're going to do, we're dividing by 6.9, so that means I need to multiply by 6.9. Okay, so those cancel. Oh my goodness, that's just ugly looking. So what are we going to do? Well, in this case, this would be an instance where I would give you a calculator. I would not expect you to do a problem like this without having a calculator. So here we get this massive number. Remember, a positive times a negative would be a negative. So our final answer would be a negative. And if we look, this is almost a -half. So half of 6.9 is like 3.4 something, close to that. And this is a little less than half. So actually what we end up getting is a -3.2899. Now, it keeps going, but in this particular instance, it just says solve each. We're going to round, and I know we've done some problems in the past. We're going to round to 3 decimal places, our nearest tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So that's going to round up. So this actually rounds to -3.290. Alright, the next problem is a little word problem. It says a mean ogre stole 18 of your muffins. Oh no. That was 3/4 of all of them. With how many did you start? Okay, so we started with what? X amount. Okay, one thing you'll learn as I teach, whenever you do word problems, make the variable represent the thing you know the least about. So I know I started out with X. So X represents the number of muffins started. And this is a good habit to get into, is label your variable what it represents. So what happened? He stole 18. So what's that mean? 18 is 3/4 of your muffins. So if I take 3/4 of my muffins, which were X, then that has to equal the number he stole, which is 18. So that's a thought process you kind of go through. It can be tough sometimes, but now this brings us to a good problem about how do we get rid of a fraction? Well, we're multiplying, so you divide. But what did we learn? The rule for dividing a fraction is multiplying by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of that is 4/3. Now, why is that important? Because the 3's cancel, cross-reduce, the 4's cross-reduce, and then that just leaves us X. Now over here on the other side, that's really 18/1. I again try to cross-reduce. 3 goes into 18 6 times. 6 times 4 would be 24. And that makes sense because we started out with more than what he stole. If he stole 18, we had more than 18 at the beginning. So always make sure your final answer makes sense to the problem. So a very quick review of one-step equations.